Okay, so now we are going to talk about handling inputs. Of course, like you would do for React for web or any web, you will provide an input to the user so they can enter some information and then we can do something. So of course with React Native, we get a way to create native inputs. If you go to the docs and you search for text input, this is the documentation, you get some examples. We're going to talk about this. Actually, we're going to do it right here. So notice that on documentation, you can get a section with components and all the components you get. Of course, we are not going to do all of them. We're going to do the most important ones. Okay, so I'm going to go back. And for this, we're going to need a component. And now if I take a look at my emulator, it's a little bit messy. So I'm going to comment this out because we are not going to really use it. And then I'm going to just create a new input called a new file called input.js, and we're gonna pretty much handle everything from there. I'm gonna go at the top, I'm gonna copy, I'm gonna paste, and pretty much the same thing with this. So I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna call this input. You could call this whatever you want, doesn't matter. And then of course the usual stuff, I'm gonna close it. Then we just need a render, open and close, and a return. All right. Now, of course, we're going to return some JSX, and for now, I'm just going to return some text within a view maybe. So let me do the view first. View, and inside some text saying, I don't know, hello. So we are going to include this input component on the app, within the app. So I'm just writing something so we can confirm that we are importing correctly. So then export default, and then of course we call it input. And just to do pretty much everything right now, I'm going to just copy an instance of styles because we are going to use it later. And I'm going to put it right here. All right, for now, it's just, empty. Now, if I go to app, we need to import this input at the top, like the other ones. So import, again, I'm just going to call it input from // src / and then input. And if we make a reference to this, I'm going to go at the bottom and maybe include it here. All right, so we get input. And now at the top, we are doing view, we are doing text. And for now, I'm just going to comment this out. All right, so I'm going to reload the application and we get hello. So, that's good. Really simple stuff. Right, so now how can we create text inputs? Well, right here on the docs, we get the component. So the name of the component is text input. Right, so pretty simple. So I'm going to go right here at the top. And of course, since this is a component, we need to include it. So text and then input. Now I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go here. And instead of just maybe returning a view, I'm just going to say text input. And that's it. That's the only thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to save it. I'm going to go to the simulator and run it again. I'm going to bring both. I'm going to reload the application and, we kind of get nothing. Now, if you kind of select something right here, we get nothing. And this is by default how it looks on iOS. So if we go to Android and we, double tap, we might be getting something different, but, we get nothing. And this is because the text input comes pretty much with nothing inside. Let's go right here. Of course, with text input, we get a lot of props. A million props. Let me go at the bottom. So if you scroll all the way down, you're going to see all the props. So we can do a lot of things with the input. Usual stuff. Most of these props, they kind of make sense. Auto capitalize, or maybe on blur or on change. The usual stuff you get for inputs on web. Now, right now, of course, we are getting nothing because we have nothing. And by default, this is how it looks. So I'm going to add a state right here, state. I'm going to open and close, and I'm going to do my text input. Now, you cannot really handle the state or the values if you're not using state or a managed text input. So for now, I'm just going to say, I don't know, Francis. I'm going to go to the text input, and I'm going to say that this one has a value. So of course, the value is going to be, and this works just like for web, it's going to be the value of the input. So we have this, that state, that my text input. Now, if I reload the application, we kind of get it. Now, if I select it, now we get something. Without adding the value, the actual input was already there. The thing is that since it's not visible, we cannot really select it. because we don't know what it is. So if I reload it on Android, we get pretty much the same behavior. Pretty cool. Now the cool thing with this is that you get a prop for styles. Let me find it right here. You can add styles to the input. So let's go back. I'm gonna go right here and just gonna make a reference to the styles, right? So I'm gonna say style equals, and then we're gonna add some styles, and then I'm gonna call it input. And now it's time to uncomment this one and give some styles. So I'm gonna say input, open and close, and first I'm gonna make it 100%, so full width, and I'm gonna add a background color so we can see it. So background, and then color. I'm not getting the autocomplete, sometimes fails. So I'm gonna give it an F2, 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 and then maybe a margin top, right? So I'm gonna give it 20. I'm gonna reload it and see what happens. So okay, we get pretty much the same thing, and it's because maybe I made a mistake with this. Of course, it's styles. All right, so let me reload it, and ugly, but much better. So sometimes with the when you get the Android and you select something right here, you're gonna try to do the double tap R, and it will not reload. It's gonna try to enter some information. So for this one, of course, you will need to either close the keyboard and do double R, and you're gonna get the same problem. So in this case, with Android, you do command and then the M, and you do reload, and then it's gonna reload. So as you can see, the styles for both are a little bit different. We are pretty much doing the same thing, but they look different. And this is actually pretty normal because this is a native input for iOS and this is a native input for Android. So they look different, right? And that's normal. Later, we're going to see how we can target different styles for different devices. We can write one style for Android and a different one for iOS. But we are not there yet. So what I want to do right now is just to use this text input. So I'm going to go right here and just add a function called onChange input. And this one is going to be just a function. And for now, we are just going to alert something, just to make sure we are triggering the onChange input. So how can we trigger this? So if you go to the docs, of course you get the onBlur, and then you get the onChange and the onChange text. So these ones are similar, the onChange and the onChange text, but they are a little bit different. So the onChange is going to trigger when you make a change on the input, but that's it. It's just it's going to run a function. It's not going to pass you the value and anything else. It's just going to run a function. It's kind of like a callback. Then you get the onChange text, and it's pretty much like the onChange. It will fire every time you change the input, but it will pass whatever is that you're typing as a string. So I'm going to go here and use that one. So onChange and then text. Now on this one, we don't need to pass the event. We don't need to do anything. We just need to make a reference to the function that we want to run. In this case, onChange input. So this one, just like any other function, will get an event, right? And inside the event, we get only one thing, which is what is the user typing right here on the screen. So, I'm just going to save it for now. I don't want to use the console. Sorry for that. I don't want to use the console. I'm going to go here and just update the state, and we're going to see it working. So this.setState, open and close. And I'm going to say, okay, I want to go to my text input, open and close, and I'm going to put the event, as value for that one. All right. So since we are updating the text input, of course, this one is going to start empty. We're going to update the text input, and the text input, it's equal to whatever value we have right here. You're going to be able to, enter some information to that input in a more managed way. So if I go to the simulator, I'm going to reload it. I select it and type Francis, then it works, right? So this is the usual way we get to enter or manage inputs with React. And I'm not just talking about React Native. I'm talking about any React application. So let's do things a little bit better. I'm going to wrap this into a view, and I'm going to give some stylings to this because right now it's really ugly. And we're going to do a couple of things with this so we can practice different things. And I'm gonna add some styles. So I'm gonna say styles dot input, I don't know, input wrapper. Why not? All right. So I'm gonna copy and I'm gonna go right here and say input wrapper. Right. So what I'm gonna do, it's pretty dumb stylings. I'm just gonna do width of 100%. That's it. That's the only thing I'm gonna do right now. And I'm gonna add some things to the input. I'm gonna keep the 100%. The background color stays the same. The margin top stays the same. And since they look pretty different, just to kind of make a standard on this, I'm just gonna add the font size, make it a little bit bigger, and add a padding so we can get some padding on iOS. Of course, on Android we don't need it, but that's okay. I'm gonna reload the application. Now on iOS we get something a little bit better, and same thing on the Android. So let's do it again. Command M. So working with the Android tools, the Android device, the Android, it's not. I don't really like it. It's not that good. All right. So we get pretty much the same thing. That's right. Now, if we check the documentation, of course we get a lot of things. I'm just gonna show you a couple of these ones. Then of course you will need to go on your own and just check the documentation. But most of them are just self-explanatory. Placeholder, placeholder text color. It's pretty simple. Now I'm going to show you a couple ones that are really interesting. For example, you get a multi-line. Let me find it. Multi-line right here. So with the multi-line, you can you can pretty much use the text input, kind of like a text area. Let me just show you multi-line. I'm going to say equal to, I don't know, true. Of course this takes a boolean. So I'm going to reload the application. I'm going to start, typing things. I'm going to type a little bit more. And then of course this one, instead of, making the input bigger or just staying behind the scenes, is going to go and, a new line. So multi-line. Again, all the prompts, they kind of make sense. All right. What else? We can, for example, limit the length, like we would do with a React for Web application. I'm going to say just 5. And if I type 5, I'm not allowed to type anymore. Really simple. Then you get the disabled. And this one, this could be disabled. I don't know why they just did it with editable or something like that. Editable. False. So this is the disabled true or disabled false we get with a web application. If I try to type something, nothing happens. And if I change it to true, we can do it. And of course, in real life, we would just manage this through state. After something happens, if we want to disable the form or disable the input, we just pass editable for false. Now there's another one which is very cool, is the auto capitalize. Very good. So on this one, we have different properties we can use. Right here, we get characters. We get none, of course, which is just disabled, and we get sentences and get words. Now the thing is that we get the auto capitalize. It's because sometimes the device will do the auto capitalize by default. So maybe you don't want that because, I don't know, you're entering an email. So you're gonna make the first letter a capital letter. So if you say none, of course, this will not happen on some devices. Now, of course, you can do a little bit more. So you get the words just like this. So I'm going to save it. And of course, I'm going to make a space. And if I type a new word, it's going to happen. Let me just disable, or maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger. So, okay, space, and space, and space, and space. Right. So you get the first letter of each word in a capitalized. So then you get sentences, for example, or you get characters. And this is, pretty much all. So I'm going to reload the application. Going to go and we get everything in a capital letter. So you get a lot of things with this. I don't want to do a lot, maybe a lot of explaining because they kind of make sense and they work just like React for Web. So I want to go to the next section, and what we're gonna do. Let me just explain you first. We're gonna add a button right here at the bottom, and every time we click it, we're gonna add a new value, and of course you're gonna render through state on the screen. And the main point of that is that we're gonna get an issue, a problem, And once you know what the problem is, I'm gonna tell you, of course, how to fix it. But first, we need to generate or create something to create that error message or that behavior. All right, so let's go to the next one and add some entries right here.